we come forth not to get you to believe anything. We see great diversity in that which you believe. And in all of that, there is perfect balance. And so we come forth not to alter your beliefs, but to reacquaint you with the eternal laws of the universe. And we are here to express all of that to you in detail.
Let's talk a little bit about the nature of desire from, now don't get freaked out, a quantum physics point of view. Oh my God, this is going to talk about physics. I don't want to listen. Just relax. You're going to enjoy this.
When we look around us, even at our own bodies, what we see is the tip of the iceberg. We could say the classical tip of an immense quantum mechanical iceberg.
Everything in the universe is energy. Your body's energy. The room you're living in is energy. Everything you want is energy.
And that's not a new idea. A fuzzy-haired guy in 1925 wrote on his chalkboard, E equals mc squared. And we couldn't grasp what that meant. What that says is on one side of the equation is mass and light and everything that we perceive, but it all equals energy. Everything is energy. And let me help you understand that just a little bit. There's the universe, of course, and our galaxy, and our planet, and then individuals, and then inside of this body are organ systems, and then there's cells, and then there's molecules, and then there's atoms, and then there is energy. So there are a lot of levels to talk about something on. But when you get down to it, everything is energy.
There's enough energy sitting in there, in one atom, to do amazing things, to possibly even open up the doorways to lighting an entire city.
Think of this for a moment. Take your hand and look at it. Now your hand looks solid, but it's really not. If you put it under a proper microscope, you'd see a mass of energy vibrating.
And so everything is made up of the exact same thing, whether it's your hand, whether it's the ocean, or whether it's a star. The colored paper with ink on it is not money. It's just energy. And so part of the illusion that we're living in is that, these things are solid. They're not solid. Neither is a piece of wood. Neither is a rock.
Get the proper microscope and go and look at a wall. That wall is not solid. That wall is a mass of energy in a very high speed of vibration.
It feels solid because of the vibration, the rate at which the molecules are vibrating.
Everything in the universe vibrates. In other words, everything moves. We live in an ocean of motion.
You are vibrational beings in a vibrational universe. Many people are not yet ready to acknowledge that they are vibrational. They prefer to see themselves as blood and bone specimens that they see in the mirror. And we want to remind you that everything that you observe with your physical senses is vibrational interpretation. In other words, you hear because your ears translate vibration. You see because your eyes translate vibration. You smell because your nose translates vibration. Your fingertips are translating vibration. Your tongue is translating vibration. All of your senses are about the translation of vibration, and that's why you are able to perceive your environment in the way that you do.
So it's very difficult for us as scientists or engineers or medical doctors or anybody to come to terms with the fact that what our senses are telling us is really not the whole story.
We've been so taught to live with our physical senses, hear, see, smell, taste, and touch. But our physical senses lie. Our physical senses don't tell us the truth.
If you only judge by your sensory factors, you'd believe the sun took a bath in the ocean every night and burrowed through the earth and was reborn on the eastern shore the next morning. I mean, the ancients used to believe that, but now you know better than that. If you judged only by your sensory factors, you'd believe that train tracks met in the distance. But you know better than that, and you turn away from your senses. If you lived only by your sensory factors, you'd believe that a dog whistle made no sound. But you know better than that, so you turn away from your sensory factors and you stand out in your yard and you blow away. And yet how many times, if we're not careful, do we find ourselves living at nothing more than the sensory level?
If we take a look at everything in the universe, we know from a scientific perspective is made up of something called energy. So what do we know about the properties of energy? Number one, all energy has a vibration. All energy has a vibration. It emits a frequency.
We are frequency generators. If you get close to someone's skin, you can feel infrared energy being given off. If you look at them, you're seeing light energy given off. We now have scans where you can put a machine around somebody's head instead of putting the electrodes on their head, and perceive and record the energy that their brain is giving off.
The most potent form of energy, by the way, is thought. It penetrates all space and all time. Every thought has a frequency. We can measure a thought. What most people don't understand is a thought has a biochemical and bioelectrical property. Every thought, which means it has a frequency. And so if you're thinking that thought over and over and over again, or if you're imagining in your mind, okay, having that brand new car, having the money that you need, building that company, finding your soulmate, if you imagine what that looks like, you're emitting that frequency on a consistent basis. Our job as humans is to hold on to the thoughts of what we want, make it absolute clear in our minds what we want, and from that we start to invoke one of the greatest laws in the universe.
This is a water droplet that you're going to see, and in this water droplet, a frequency is being pumped into this water droplet. As the frequency is mirrored in the droplet, you'll actually see the geometric patterns in that droplet. Now what's happening, and the reason that this is so significant, is because we're going to do a frequency sweep. We're going to go from low frequencies to higher frequencies. And what you'll find is this. You'll see that in the lower frequencies, the patterns are less complex. And in the higher frequency, the patterns are more complex. So we're going through a sweep from lower to higher frequency. I'm sharing this with you now because Earth is essentially going through a frequency sweep. Our fundamental pulse, our base pulse that has hovered around 7.8 cycles per second now is changing. And again, there's a lot of controversy about what the change is, and we're witnessing the change. As we go through our planetary shift of this pulse, patterns of energy must change to respond to that, just as patterns of energy in this water are changing to respond to this pulse. And we'll begin with simply the concentric patterns in the water. As the frequency begins, every once in a while we'll reach a key threshold resonance, such as that moment right there. And in that key threshold resonance, the entire pattern morphed into a more complex expression of itself, simply because the frequency changed. Now watch what happens. The frequency is still increasing. And watch what happens. As we reach another key threshold resonance, this entire pattern will morph into a beautifully and more complex pattern of itself. Again, and again. And look at this pattern right here. Look what you're seeing right here. Look at the beautiful geometry. Here is a perfect cube. There's a perfect tetrahedron, a star tetrahedron. In 2 dimensions, we've got the octahedron. Very powerful images of sacred geometry held in place simply because we've achieved the vibratory pattern that allows that in this water droplet. And as the vibration increases, these patterns will become more and more complex. You can see the pulse from where you are. Can you see the pulse actually in the water? As we go into the last set of the frequencies, what you'll see is that the entire, and you'll watch along the outer perimeter, the entire pattern reaches its greatest level of complexity, and then it goes back as the frequencies drop, it goes back to what it was, the concentric circles, as it was originally. It almost looks alive. You know, you've been offered many times the concept that thought is vibration. Have you ever considered that emotion is vibration? Feeling is vibration. We are always feeling something. We are always emoting something. We may not always be aware of what that is. We carry those patterns with us. As we hold a feeling and an emotion, what we're doing is we are holding a vibratory pattern in the liquid crystal of our bodies.
It reveals that it's the invisible stimuli that are much more important. There's a simple quote by Albert Einstein that makes sense out of this, and the quote is, "The field is the sole governing agency of the particle." What Einstein meant by this very simply is the field, the invisible energy forces around us, they are the sole governing agencies of the particle, and the particles matter. And so quantum physics says the character of matter is ultimately determined by the field.
If we were ever going to interact with our bodies, if we want to heal our bodies, we want to create peace in our families or our communities, we must speak to the fields that connect all things. We must find a meaningful language, a non-verbal language that communicates with the stuff that this world is made of. The bottom line, the through line, is that they're all speaking about an experience, an inner experience that we have focused on our hearts. What the science now is showing is that those experiences extend beyond our bodies into the world around us, because the field of our heart is part of the world around us and connected with that field. So that when individuals can find a way to create coherence in their lives and become more cooperative, less aggressive, more willing to solve problems together, that experience is transmitted in this field, and others begin to find the same experience just because they're in that field. They're in that field. When we have a feeling in our hearts, we're creating electrical and magnetic waves inside of our bodies that extend beyond our bodies into the world around us. And what's so interesting is the research shows that those waves extend not just 1 meter or 2 meters, many, many kilometers beyond where our heart physically resides.
And Keefe explains this phenomenon.
September 11th deeply affected people far beyond New York and Washington. The attack sent shockwaves around the world, a global reaction that triggered a spike in a network of scientific instruments, just like a seismograph during an earthquake.
Each of those showed a similar pattern of change during that day.
Retired Princeton scientist Dr. Roger Nelson believes the emotional focus of millions of people on a single event like 9/11 may form a global consciousness.
This chart shows a dotted line going up and down, which is the rise and fall on a daily basis of the number of people who are meditating as a group in Jerusalem. It's all on a volunteer basis. And the solid line represents progress towards peace in the war in neighboring Lebanon. And even before the benefit of statistical analysis, you can almost see from the raw data that progress towards peace, measured by reduced war deaths, reduced war injury, progress towards negotiated settlement among the rival factions, the progress towards peace goes up and down almost in lockstep with the number of people who are meditating as a group, radiating this influence of inner peace to become outer peace. When this was subject to mathematical analysis, the likelihood that this is simply due to some fluke, due to chance, is less than 1 part in 10,000, which for a social scientific experiment is extraordinary. To be able to say something with this certainty, that group meditation prevented war, that is a really remarkable finding. The likelihood that this reduction of war was again simply due to chance and not due to the meditating groups was less than 1 part in 10 million. There is far more evidence that group meditation can turn off war like a light switch than there is evidence that aspirin reduces headache pain.
To use the law of attraction favorably, it's important to understand how the creation of physical, tangible results occurs. The law of vibration states that everything vibrates at its own frequency. Everything visible and invisible has a frequency or an energetic pattern. Essentially, there's one pure source of energy that can vibrate in an infinite range of frequencies. Each of these individual frequencies oscillate at their own unique set point, while also matching other things that vibrate at a similar frequency. And this is the true power source behind manifesting the things we want. Each frequency has the ability to create something unique. Everything that you see is merely a different frequency of the one original source energy that makes up all that is. What appears to be solid matter is nothing more than vibrating energy. Your physical being is just one of your many manifested creations. It's not actually who you are, but the equipment you have for transforming information. It is a tool used for translation, and it has the ability to translate vibration into physical experience. Because of our physical bodies and senses, we are able to convert frequencies into the different perceptions of sight, scent, touch, sound, and taste. But beyond each translation that we make through our physical bodies, there is a vibrational frequency at the root of each thing that we sense in this way. This is what makes the vehicle of the physical body so magnificent. It's an instrument with the very distinct purpose of interpreting vibration into experiences for us. Our physical bodies also have their own frequency, and each individual's frequency limits their range of experience because that frequency only resides within the realm of other frequencies that match it. In other words, the physical senses have a limited operating range. The illusion of time is also a part of the translation that the physical senses perceive. There is no way to measure time without using the physical senses. It's strictly a man-made concept. But the true self is unlimited. In order to use the body to experience beyond what the 5 physical senses detect, and to manifest beyond the current frequency set point, we use our minds and imagination to create deliberate translations that go past the physical senses and into the realm of the non-physical. Through our imagination, things become real instantaneously, but only in a way that is non-physical, rather than through the physical senses. The mind and feeling states have the ability to form new creations by reaching past the limitations of the physical frequency that is currently held, therefore beginning to stretch the vibration into other places and manifestations. This is the starting point. It's the place to begin to move the self into new physical translations or realities. When the new vibration or frequency is maintained dominantly, it will match frequencies of a like nature, and the physical senses will be able to translate those new frequencies as the new reality. This is why thought and imagination are so important. They are the catalysts for new experiences and new realities. You can sense certain things in your thoughts, although you don't yet see them in your physically perceived reality with your physical senses. This is because the frequency of your physical body, including your physical senses, has not yet caught up with what you are creating in your mind. The physical senses remain at their current frequency, or the last frequency that you adjusted them to. Therefore, they can only continue feeding you sensory information that falls within that frequency range, unless you make the effort to readjust the frequency by creating new experiences with your mind and imagination. Physically translated manifestations are simply a specific frequency that has been layered upon itself so many times that it appears dense. In other words, when the frequency becomes strong enough from the adequate mental energy of visualization, desire, thought, belief, and emotions, the physical senses can recognize it and translate it as a physical, tangible thing. These mental faculties create the order that is placed with the universe. In truth, whenever we perceive a manifestation with our physical senses, we're actually perceiving the projection of its non-physical form, which is created by the mental energies through intense focus, belief, and feeling states. A very large percentage of the manifestation process is already completed by the time you begin to translate it into your physical experience. In other words, the vibration of the thing that you have mentally created is already real before you can even detect it. Time is irrelevant in a universe of pure energy lacking physicality. You're merely spending what is considered time adjusting your frequency to match this new reality and building upon it with focus so your physical senses are able to detect it. So you have your mind and feeling states that do the real creating for you. And then you're able to perceive these things with the faculties of your physical senses, once the frequency is substantial enough for them to do so, and once your frequency begins to match the frequency of the manifestation desired. So how do you train your physical senses to detect a broader range of frequencies that match the things you want to manifest? Remember that the essence of who you are is pure consciousness. You come from the one pure light source of energy. Your body is simply the transmitter, much like a radio. If you want to perceive new realities through this physical vehicle, you'll have to change the channel deliberately. Most likely, you'll have to reset this channel every time you intentionally tune into it until it takes the cue and has switched to it automatically as the default setting. The first step to begin translating different frequencies is tuning out from your physical senses in order to tune in to your non-physical senses, or your mind and emotional states. The best way to do this is by going into an environment where you are able to eliminate as much sensory input as possible. Attempt to find a space where the temperature is comfortable, the smell of the air is neutral, and it is quiet and free from distraction. Close your eyes and physically relax your body. Breathe deeply for several minutes so that your sense of touch loosens its sensation or even becomes numb. This is very achievable if you remain still so that your nerve endings adjust to the lack of input. The more you practice this state, the easier it is to move into it very quickly at will. Realize that once you disconnect from your physical senses completely, time is no longer something you perceive. This is when you'll know that you and your physical senses are totally relaxed. Once you've turned your attention away from your physical senses, you can begin to tune into your creative faculties in a very powerful way. Start with your desire. This is the non-physical equivalent of physical movement and action. When we create something non-physically by desiring it, it manifests immediately in non-physical form. For example, if you wanted to imagine being on vacation, you only need to have the desire to do so, and the image or sensation of it will be created. You can sense its energy with your mind and imagination. In that moment, you are tuning into the frequency of that vacation as it is in non-physical form. Even if you are not able to see it in your mind, you can perceive it. All it takes is having the desire to create it, and it is so. As you connect with your desire, feel the emotion of it. What you really ultimately desire is the non-physical frequency range of the manifestation, or how it feels to have it and be with it. Once again, by thinking of your desire in a state of total relaxation and detachment, you should be able to sense immediately how it feels to have this manifestation in your presence. Absorb yourself in those feeling states and sit with them for as long as you wish, or until they are no longer heightened. practice this exercise daily. You're simply detaching from your physical senses so you can create in the non-physical realm where your desires manifest instantly. Although your physical senses are rarely able to perceive these changes immediately, when you understand that you are readjusting your frequency and building the frequency of the desire, it makes the process seem much more logical and easier to understand. Your physical senses are only able to pick up slight energetic shifts in the direction of your desire as your senses adjust themselves to perceive the frequencies you've created. Your desires have immediately been created in the non-physical, but in order for you to see them in physical form, you must turn yourself toward their direction. The last tip, and a very important one, is to focus on creating non-physical manifestations solely. This is the key to manifesting faster and with more precision. What everyone really wants, the thing behind their desires, is the non-physical frequency range. It's the emotions and the feelings that we are all reaching for. For example, money, a big house, and the perfect relationship are simply projections of the non-physical manifestation. The underlying meaning behind each of these things is how they make us feel. We don't actually desire the physical manifestation, we desire the feeling state. This is why trying to manifest the physical form of what we desire creates a weak intention. We hear that it's important to visualize what we desire while also feeling what it would feel like to already have it. This is because it's not the physical manifestation that ultimately satisfies us. It's the feeling state that accomplishes this. Focusing on the physical manifestation, rather than the feeling we truly want from it, is like trying to satisfy our appetite with a picture of something we'd like to eat, rather than having the actual meal itself. More so, by focusing on the feeling, we begin to align our frequency with the frequency of what we intend to manifest, therefore bringing it into our experience in a much faster way. Put all of your creative energy into creating and manifesting your non-physical desires, because that's what you truly want. The deeper meaning is carried by the energetic aspect of the frequencies, or how you feel when you think about already having what you want. Always set your intention for the non-physical feeling and allow the projection of that to come to you as it will. Eventually, your frequency and the frequency of your desire will match. Your physical senses will catch up to that, and you'll see your desire projected into physical form.